Oh, Facebook and YouTube, it is time for Tuesdays with DX Engineering. And this is a show where we bring on one of our team members to talk about things that are important to your amateur radio station. Today we have Kirk, K4RO from Tennessee. Hello, Kirk.
Hello, Tim and DX Engineering fans worldwide.
And great to have you here, Kirk. A lot of experience at K4RO with connectors, and wanted to have you relate some of that experience because so many times when customers have problems, or even you have a problem at your station or even here at K3LR, it comes down to a connector. What's some good advice there, Kirk?
Yeah, in fact, the problem is so ubiquitous that we've kind of coined a term IAAC. It's always a connector. I mean, it seems like about 99 times out of 100 when there's some kind of issue with anything in the shack or on the tower, it's amazing how many times that's a connector. So I've seen it over and over and over again. You know, connectors are a pretty deep subject. There are thousands of different types of connectors, from single pin to hundreds of pins. They're high power connectors, low power connectors, high voltage, low current. But they're all trying to do the same thing. And there's some basic things that can be done to ensure that we get the most out of our connectors. So I thought we'd talk about that, just since I discuss it almost every day with customers.
Yeah, and one of the popular connectors that you're talking about too, Kirk, is the PL259. And here's a PL259 mounted on RG400, my favorite patch cable here in the shack. And of course, these connectors have to be tight and not just finger tight. And my favorite tightening tool is the small pair of channel locks. And the channel locks can be set for the right outside diameter, and you go finger tight plus a quarter turn with the channel locks and get it tight. And Kirk, you and I have a good friend that actually had loose connectors, didn't know it, and sent his radio back to get repaired. And the connector was not tight. The PL259 was not tight. And any other tips on getting connectors tight, Kirk?
Well, with that PL259 in particular, if you look closely, there's some teeth on the male connector, and there are grooves on the female connector, the SO239. And you want to make sure that tooth is in the grooves before you tighten everything down. And the best way to ensure that is to grab the back of the connector and turn it slightly counterclockwise while you're slowly tightening the shell, and you'll feel it lock and go into one of those pins. And then when that happens, you actually can get another half turn or so out of the shell. And that way, the pin isn't sitting somewhere in between two of those teeth. And it really helps a lot to get that right. With the pliers, don't squeeze too hard. You don't want to oval that outer ring and make it hard to thread. I actually like using shock spark plug pliers, which we also sell. And they're nice because they're round and they have like plastic dip on them that makes them non-marring. They won't scratch your connector. So if that's a concern, you might consider the spark plug pliers as well. But nothing will get you the kind of torque like you can get with some channel locks. So that's probably Tim's made a few thousand connectors in his day, and I think he probably knows what he's talking about. So yeah, and the other tip I'll make on PL259s is let us make them for you. Particularly if you're new at this and you don't have a lot of experience with putting coaxial connectors on, a lot rides on that coax connector being done correctly. And there are many of us who've been doing it for years and are not doing it correctly. And, while it may work great the first day or the first week, or maybe even the first month, after a few rainstorms or freeze thaw cycles, all of a sudden things stop working. The great thing about buying pre-made cables from us is, they're installed professionally by people that do hundreds of these connectors a day, know exactly what they're doing. and they're tested afterwards using a high potential tester that pumps a couple thousand volts through them. If there's any flaw at all, that high pot tester will find it. So you can save yourself a lot of headache by letting us make cables for you. And we've got lots of pre-made cable assemblies in many different types of coax and many different lengths. And if you really need something special, we can usually custom make just about anything you need with our cable builder.
That custom cable builder is great. It's easy to use. And if you want a cable that's 83 feet long and you want a BNC on one side and a PL259 on the other side, you can do that. And the other thing, Kirk, that we run into a lot, guys will spend hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on radio equipment, antennas, towers, and then they'll go to a ham fest and spend 49 cents on the PL259. And that's a recipe for disaster. It really is.
Yeah, the old phrase penny wise and pound foolish really rings true there. Cheap connectors are never, ever worth the headache, particularly RF connectors. Now, if you're hacking something together and you're going to use it for 5 minutes, that's one thing. But as our friend Ward Silver likes to point out, every temporary antenna seems to become a permanent antenna. So try to do even the temporary stuff correctly, and you'll be really glad you did down the road. Don't just put a wrap of electrical tape on there. Do it right. Put the 2 wraps of coax, vapor lock on there, followed by the good Scotch 33 or 88, and you just won't have problems down the road. It's really worth the trouble.
It is, and the same holds true for the 13.8 volts that goes into a lot of the radios. Kirk, if you're running your radio at 100 watts, you're drawing over 20 amps, and if you don't have good connections and tight connections, what happens? You get voltage drops, and then it's like the radio is not responsive, and again, some guys might send the radio back to either us or the manufacturer and say it's defective when it was just a loose connection, right, on the DC system.
That's right. High current applications require heavier cables. And one of the common troubleshooting tips I'll do if a customer reports symptoms that indicate there might be voltage drop is have them get out their voltmeter, measure the voltage right at the power supply, but then more importantly, measure it at the radio if possible with the radio turned on and transmitting. And if there's 2 or 3 volts of voltage drop, well, there's your problem. You have to use heavy wires, and they have to be very, firmly mechanically clamped in place. It's all the more important when you've got high current flowing.
Yeah, and you can't take this stuff lightly. You have to make sure that your connections are tight, and they're clean too. And of course, Kirk, we've watched guys try to solder coax that has had water on the shield, and now the shield is discolored or even black, and that's not going to work. Let's go to the chat room here, because we do have some of our viewers in the chat room, and we've got Steve, November Alpha 5 Charlie, is in the chat room, and he says, "Good afternoon, Tim and Kirk. In my business, we always use the best connectors as we can. Cheap doesn't pay." And boy, that is just great advice, Steve, because the cheap coax connectors especially will come back to bite you. And we've got John on, November 8 Golf Queen Yankee. He's from Tennessee. Kirk's in Tennessee. And John, good to have you on. This is your first DX Engineering YouTube Live. So
John is my neighbor, and I met him for the first time this weekend. He lives about 3 miles away on the other side of Pegram. Yeah.
Well, John, I hope this is not your last show, and certainly 3 miles away from a rock star like Kirk, man, that is great. Bobby is on from Nevada, Whiskey 6 India Whiskey November. He's part of our DX Engineering sales team. If you ever get on the phone with Bobby, or you need help in our Sparks warehouse, he's the guy. And he's also up on summits and parks on the air, doing lots of work there. Our friend Larry is on Kilo India 5 Mike Charlie. And Kilo Tango 1 Radio says every dB matters. And it really does. Remember, reciprocity exists. And what do I mean by that? It means that if something is going bad on transmit, it's also bad on receive. So, and if you're not hearing very many stations, you're probably not going to transmit very well on that antenna. Rich is on. The sun is not up in Australia yet, but Victor Kilo 2 India Zulu. Rich, good morning to you, and hope you have a great day over there. And here's Mark, Mike 0 Delta X-ray radio on from the UK. And Mark is the chairman of WRTC 2026. And Mark has operated with Kirk on 20 meters. How about that, Kirk?
Great to see you, Mark, or virtually. And good luck this summer.
And from the Faroe Islands, it's Oscar Yankee 1, Oscar Foxtrot, working on DXCC here, Kirk. Our good friend Gary Sutcliffe, W9 X-Ray Tango, who, Kirk, when you were doing the NCJ, you know Gary quite well. What is your opinion on Anderson power pole connectors for DC power? What do you think, Kirk?
You know, I have to be full disclosure here. I'm not the biggest fan of power poles. I realize they have great applications for MCOM and that they're very popular and a lot of people have used them. I've just kind of did things old school using spade lugs and screws, and I like really tight mechanical connections that aren't going to vibrate loose, even though almost everything does over time. I think they really shine for portable operations, POTA setups. For a big honking station like mine, I just tend to like bigger, heavier connections. But they certainly have their place, and they've been very well accepted by the amateur radio community. You know,
I echo your experience, Kirk, with power poles. They are nice, they're slick, but I've been burned in two ways. I had them in some outdoor cabinets, and I was not drawing a whole lot of current. What does that mean? It means I was drawing about 50 mils, powering some buffer amplifiers, and I would have trouble with intermittent connections and voltage drop with those power poles. So it's not good for every type of installation. So you have to be careful. November 9, Fox Oscar Delta. Hello from Alabama. And nice to have you on, Ron. And John says, I'll be knocking on Kirk's door for sure. And Tracy says, I agree. Loss out and loss in. Kilo Charlie 7 Whiskey Fox Delta. And our good friend Dave, Kilo 8 Delta Victor, also part of the DX engineering team, says, hello, Tim and Kirk. Great info about connectors. I know we all have been bitten by a loose connector. Always happens at the worst time. And, you know, what I do is I go around and I check my connectors. And I will always find one of them loose. And I say, how the heck did that happen? Because I know I've used the channel locks on these connectors, but it does. It happens, and you have to check and double check your connectors. So don't go crazy with these things. Like Kirk says, you can deform the connectors, but if you use these wisely, they will be your friend. Walt's on Kilo 3 Delta Quebec Bravo. And
hello, Walt. My old friend Walt was instrumental in helping me become a CW guy in 1975. He helped me build my very first electronic paddle, and I still work them on the air today. It's great to see you, old man.
Walt, you did a great job. Kirk was here about 10 days ago, and his CW is the best. I can attest to that. Well, I hope you all will go out and tighten your connectors. And if you have problems with connectors or coax, you can always call in to DX Engineering or write us, email us, text us, and we will do everything we can to help you have fun with the best hobby in the world. Hope you learned something today. Thanks for watching. And until next time, 73 from DX Engineering. Thank you, Kirk.
73.